The unexpected sound. It was a day like no other. The sky above Earth was clear, but something sinister loomed in the distance. Far beyond the horizon, a fleet of alien ships approached, their dark silhouettes blocking out the stars. They had come to conquer. They had come to end humanity's reign. The air was thick with tension. People on Earth had been hearing rumors for weeks, whispers of an alien invasion. Military forces across the planet were on high alert. The alarms blared across every city, signaling the impending attack. The sound was sharp and urgent, a reminder that Earth was facing its darkest hour. But as the alarm echoed through the streets, something unexpected happened. The people of Earth didn't flee. They didn't panic. Instead, something strange began to happen. The people, young and old, stood still for a moment, listening. And then, in an instant, the most surprising thing occurred. They started to move. At first, it was just a few. A teenager in New York, standing on the corner, tapping his foot to the beat of the alarm. A group of friends in Tokyo, nodding their heads, as if they were hearing a new type of music. The sound of the alarm wasn't terrifying them. It was energizing them. It was making them feel something they hadn't expected. The strange reaction quickly spread. In Paris, a couple stepped out of a cafe, laughing as they swayed to the sound of the blaring sirens. In London, a group of soldiers began marching in sync, moving as if they had rehearsed the steps to a dance. It wasn't fear that the alarms inspired. It was rhythm. Humanity had found a beat in the chaos. The alien fleet, still light years away, had no idea what they were walking into. They had studied humanity, watched their wars, their conflicts, their fear. They had assumed that the sound of a battle alarm would send humans scattering, hiding in fear. But instead, they were greeted by something completely different, a sense of unity, a strange energy that the aliens couldn't have predicted. The alien commanders on their ships were puzzled. Their technology was far superior to anything Earth had, but this was something entirely new. As their ships got closer, they began to notice the people on the ground, continuing to move to the beat of the alarm. It was almost as if Earth's citizens were embracing the incoming danger, rather than cowering from it. On the ground, military leaders were shocked. They had expected their forces to be ready for battle, but they hadn't expected this. Soldiers and civilians alike were sensing to the same rhythm, moving like a single entity. The sound of the alarms no longer felt like a warning. It was now a call to action. It was as if the very pulse of Earth had shifted in that moment. The alien commanders were becoming more concerned. What kind of species reacts like this? What kind of soldiers not only face danger but dance to it? The idea of using the alarm to intimidate the humans had failed completely. Instead, it had bonded them, made them stronger in their unity. They were not afraid. As the human population began to vibe with the alarms, the alien fleet began to hesitate. They had expected to strike fear into humanity, but now they weren't sure what to expect. The last thing they had ever imagined was that Earth's people would embrace the chaos, the danger, and turn it into something far more powerful than fear. The tension in the air grew thicker as the alien ships moved closer, preparing for their first strike. The humans continued, unfazed. The city streets, once filled with panic, were now alive with movement. It was a rhythm unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, and it was starting to have an effect. What had begun as an invasion now seemed like an invitation to battle, a challenge that the aliens weren't sure they were ready for. The Earth wasn't retreating, and it wasn't hiding. It was standing its ground, moving to the rhythm of battle, and daring the invaders to come closer. It was at that moment that the aliens made their first mistake. They underestimated humanity. They thought that fear would be the weapon that would break them. But instead, it was their unity, their strange, unexplainable ability to turn chaos into something beautiful that would be their greatest weapon. As the humans continued to vibe, the first wave of alien ships came into view. They were large, imposing, and technologically advanced. But as they approached, they began to realize something. The sound of the battle alarm wasn't causing the chaos they had expected. It was creating something else entirely. It was creating a sense of power, a bond between Earth's people that the aliens had no understanding of. The Earth had found its strength in something as simple as rhythm. The invasion had begun, but humanity wasn't afraid. Instead, they were ready to face whatever came their way, and ready to show the aliens something they'd never seen before. The battle for Earth was no longer just about weapons. It was about unity. And the humans were about to show the galaxy what that really meant. The alien fleet's panic. As the human vibe continued to spread across the planet, something strange began happening to the alien invaders. They had been so sure that Earth's people would buckle under the weight of their invasion. They were wrong. What they didn't expect was the way humanity responded, a response that made them question everything they had assumed. The alien fleet, made up of hundreds of ships, loomed ominously over Earth. These were creatures who had conquered countless worlds, fought countless battles, and defeated civilizations far more advanced than humanity. They were calculating and ruthless. Their strategy was flawless, and they had every intention of showing Earth its place in the galaxy. However, as their ships descended upon the planet, something unexpected occurred. The humans weren't scattering in fear as they had hoped. No, they were embracing the alarm. The sirens, which had once been the universal signal for disaster, had transformed into something entirely different for Earth's citizens. It was as though the rhythm of the battle alarms had fused with the heartbeat of every person on the planet, creating a sense of unity and defiance that was impossible to ignore. The alien commanders, watching from their ships, felt a knot form in their stomachs. What was happening? They had assumed that Earth's people would be terrified. They had thought they would face a broken, panicked society, scattered across the world in search of shelter. But that wasn't happening. The humans were too organized, too calm. They were moving as one. The lead alien commander, a being named Krellrax, could feel the shift. His mind was racing. He had studied Earth for years, analyzing their wars and their history, understanding their psychology. Fear had always been the key to their control. But now, something was different. Something about this moment was unsettling. Are they dancing? Krellrax muttered, watching the images sent from his fleet's surveillance units. He couldn't believe his eyes. Humans, once weak and vulnerable in his eyes, were now standing their ground. They were vibing to the alarm, as if it was a call to action, rather than a warning of impending doom. They are unfazed by the alarms. They are united, one of his officers reported, her voice tinged with disbelief. Krellrax's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary species. He had believed the humans to be primitive, easy to conquer. But this display of unity, this wasn't the behavior of a broken people. This was something entirely different. Across the planet, military commanders were seeing the same thing. Troops, once trembling in fear, were now standing tall, moving in perfect rhythm. Civilians, who should have been running in fear, were now working together, as if the sound of the alarm had ignited a fire in them. It wasn't chaos, it was order. A strange, new form of battle preparation. In the cities of Earth, soldiers began to synchronize their movements, marching in perfect time with the alarm's rhythm. Even the civilians, who had no training in combat, seemed to understand the message. They were joining in, uniting with their soldiers in a shared sense of purpose. No one was afraid. No one was retreating. Krellrax felt a sense of unease. He had studied the humans, but this was something beyond his understanding. The humans were not only surviving, they were thriving. They had turned the very sound of their own defeat into a rallying cry. The thought struck him like a cold slap. These humans were stronger than he had ever imagined. The first wave of alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, descending toward their targets. They were massive, their weaponry powerful enough to wipe out entire cities in seconds. But as they prepared to launch their initial strikes, the alien commanders paused. The vibrations of the alarm were not fading. They were growing stronger. The humans were not just embracing the chaos. They were amplifying it, turning it into something more powerful, a force that was unlike anything the aliens had faced before. "We need to adjust the strategy," Krulrax ordered. His mind was racing, trying to think of a way to break the humans. "This is not what we planned for." The fleet's officers scrambled, trying to recalibrate their attack, but there was no manual for this kind of battle. There were no instructions for dealing with a species that could harness the power of unity in the face of certain destruction. It was beyond their comprehension. The Earth, once thought to be vulnerable and weak, was beginning to turn the tables. And the aliens, though technologically superior, were finding themselves in an unfamiliar position. They were losing their confidence. The battle had not even begun, and yet they were already second-guessing their strategy. Across Earth, soldiers continued their rhythmic marches, civilians continued their synchronized movements, and every human, from the smallest child to the oldest elder, felt the beat of the alarm pulse through their veins. It was no longer a sound of danger, it was the heartbeat of the planet. The humans had not only survived the invasion, they had transformed it into something greater than the aliens could ever have imagined. Krulrax looked out at the planet below. The humans were no longer the weak, frightened species they had once believed them to be. The aliens had underestimated Earth, and now they would pay the price. The alien commander's dilemma. The alien commanders were growing restless, their perfect plan unraveling with each passing second. Krulrax, the leader of the invading force, paced furiously inside the command chamber of his flagship, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. He had never faced anything like this before. The humans, so insignificant in their eyes, were proving to be a far greater challenge than anticipated. "Why aren't they afraid?" Krulrax demanded, his voice shaking with frustration. His second in command, an alien named Zoran, stood beside him, his 6 eyes scanning the data streaming in from the fleet's reconnaissance ships. The images they were receiving painted a picture of an Earth that wasn't cowering under the alien threat. Instead, it seemed to be growing stronger with every passing moment. The humans were not panicking. They were preparing. Zoran spoke carefully, choosing his words. "The humans, they're uniting. The signal, the vibrations from their alarms, it's not breaking them. It's empowering them." Krulrax growled in frustration. He had studied Earth's people for years before launching this invasion. They were supposed to be weak, fractured. History had shown them to be divided, full of petty conflicts and insignificant struggles. The perfect target for conquest. And yet, here they were, standing as one. Zoran continued, his voice barely audible over the hum of the command chamber's machinery. "It's almost as if the more we threaten them, the more they resist. They are adaptable in ways we did not predict." Krulrax clenched his fists. He had studied the humans, but nothing in their history had prepared him for this kind of resilience. He had expected the usual reaction: fear, chaos, surrender. But instead, they were standing together, determined and confident. The sight of them marching, unafraid, to the rhythm of the alarm had made his heart skip a beat. It was as if they were preparing for something far greater than just a battle. "They must be broken," Krulrax muttered to himself. "If we don't break them now, they'll never fall." Zoran looked at him, eyes narrowed in concern. "We've never encountered anything like this, Commander. We're losing control." They're rallying, gaining strength. For the first time, doubt crept into Krulrax's mind. Could they truly conquer this planet, these people who refused to be broken? His fleet had the firepower to destroy entire civilizations, but Earth was proving to be something entirely different. What if this wasn't just a battle for territory? What if this was a war for something more, something the aliens couldn't possibly understand? Krulrax snapped back into focus. He couldn't afford to show weakness now. He had to act swiftly and decisively. He turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet for immediate assault. We will hit them with everything we have. No more delays. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a terrible mistake. The humans weren't just standing strong. They were uniting in a way that felt almost primal. He had read about unity in human history, but nothing had prepared him for how powerful it was when the entire planet seemed to rally behind a single cause. The fleet's officers moved quickly, activating their weapon systems and preparing for the first wave of attacks. Their ships, once full of confidence and arrogance, were now tinged with uncertainty. Even their leaders, who had always been so sure of themselves, were beginning to question their plan. Krulrex's mind raced, trying to calculate the best way to shatter Earth's newfound resolve. He needed to break their spirit before they could turn the tide. He needed to remind them of their place in the galaxy, a place that was beneath the alien empire. But as he stared out at Earth through the viewports of his flagship, he couldn't help but notice something strange. The humans weren't just gathering in strength. They were becoming more coordinated. The vibrations from the battle alarms, which had once been chaotic, were now synchronized. It was as if the sound itself had become a symbol, a rallying cry that spurred the humans forward. Krulrex's jaw tightened. He knew they were on the brink of something dangerous. He had to act quickly. Back on Earth, the humans were continuing their preparations. In cities around the world, soldiers moved in perfect sync, their boots hitting the pavement in time with the alarm's beat. Civilians, once scattered and disorganized, were now forming ranks, helping one another prepare for the unknown. Families, once huddled in fear, were now setting up makeshift defense stations, working together as though they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Across the globe, Earth's leaders were not panicking. They were not retreating. Instead, they were leading their people with calm determination. The sound of the alarms had become the planet's heartbeat, and every human on Earth seemed to feel it. In the command centers, military leaders were watching the same footage that had unsettled the aliens. The synchronization of their forces was almost flawless. The energy that had once been fear was now focused, unified, and strong. Humanity had turned the aliens' advantage into their own, and yet the aliens were about to unleash their full power. They had no idea that Earth's people had already become something far more powerful than just a resistance. They had become a force of nature. And nothing, not even the alien invaders, could stop them now. The battle commences. The moment had arrived. As the alien fleet moved into Earth's orbit, the planet's skies were illuminated with the glow of their descending ships. They were huge, intimidating, and their weapon systems were formidable. The aliens believed their superior technology would crush any resistance. However, what they did not understand was the unstoppable force that had been building up on Earth. In the command centers around the world, military leaders were calm but resolute. Every soldier, every civilian, every fighter on Earth was ready. The alarms were no longer just a signal of distress. They were a symbol of unity and resolve. The humans, once scattered and frightened, were now aligned and prepared for the fight of their lives. "We won't let them take our planet," General Emma Lawson said, her voice steady as she surveyed the battlefield through her tactical screens. "This is our home, and we fight to the last man and woman." The global forces had gathered in synchrony, every nation, every faction, and every individual fighting as one. It was humanity's finest hour, a moment that they would remember for generations. The alien fleet, though vast and imposing, was about to face a planet united against them. As the first alien ships began to fire upon Earth's defenses, the humans retaliated with an unrelenting counterattack. Missiles launched into the sky, their engines roaring as they soared toward the alien ships. Laser beams from ground-based stations lit up the night, trying to intercept the massive ships descending from the sky. The sound of battle, once distant and foreign, was now a thunderous roar heard across the world. On the battlefield, the soldiers felt the rhythm of the alarms pulsing through their veins. The once chaotic sound had become their heartbeat. With every blast of the alien weapons, with every explosion that rocked the Earth, humanity's resolve grew stronger. There was no turning back now. The alien ships were not prepared for this. The battle alarms had made the humans more determined, more unified, and more dangerous. What the aliens had thought would be an easy invasion had turned into a nightmare. Their own troops were beginning to panic as they saw their ships getting damaged, their technology failing against the coordinated attacks from below. We underestimated them, Zoran, the second in command of the alien fleet, said in disbelief as he watched the chaos unfolding on his command screens. Their resistance is unlike anything we've encountered. Krelrax, his face twisted in fury, slammed his fist onto the control panel. Focus. We will crush them. Fire the orbital cannons. The alien fleet began to retaliate with all their might. Massive energy beams shot down from their flagship, striking cities and military bases around the globe. But for every city that fell, another rose to take its place. Humanity refused to break. In the skies above, Earth's fighter jets soared in formation, their engines humming in harmony with the battle alarms. The pilots, once just men and women with families and hopes, were now a force of nature. They flew fearlessly, attacking the alien ships with precision, their courage fueled by the unity that had spread across the planet. Lock on to the main cannon. Captain John Harper barked to his squadron as they dodged incoming fire. We take down their command ship. We take down their hope. The battle raged on, Earth's forces fighting back with everything they had. The alien fleet was huge, but the humans had something they didn't. The strength of unity, a deep-rooted belief that no invader, no matter how powerful, could destroy them. They fought not just for survival, but for their homes, their families, and their future. And then something happened that the aliens never expected. The humans, fueled by the sound of the alarms, fought back harder, smarter. They began to outmaneuver the alien ships, evading attacks and launching counterstrikes with precision. It was as if the rhythm of the alarms had become their weapon, giving them strength and clarity in the face of overwhelming odds. The aliens watched in horror as their ships were picked off one by one, their forces slowly being pushed back. It was clear now that they had severely underestimated the humans. This was not a species that could be easily conquered. No, these were beings of determination, beings who would fight to the end. We must retreat, Krelrax muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. Their forces, they're too coordinated. They're vibing with the battle alarms. Zoran looked at his commander with wide eyes. They're not just fighting. They're thriving. We can't win this. But it was too late. The tide had already turned. The humans, united and determined, were pushing back the alien invaders, forcing them to retreat in panic. What had started as an invasion had quickly become a rout. Back on Earth, the people watched as the alien ships began to retreat, their once imposing fleet now a scattering of broken, defeated forces. The sound of victory began to echo across the planet as humans cheered, their spirits soaring higher with each retreating alien ship. The battle had been hard. The cost was high. But humanity had won. They had faced down the alien invaders, their forces overwhelmed by the unity and strength of a planet that refused to give up. The humans had proved, once and for all, that they were a force to be reckoned with. The aliens had underestimated the power of Earth, and in doing so, they had made the gravest mistake of their lives. Humanity had shown the galaxy that when pushed to the edge, they would rise up, fight back, and never back down. And as the last of the alien ships disappeared into the depths of space, Earth stood victorious, a planet that had not only survived, but triumphed. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The universe had learned a valuable lesson that day. Never underestimate humanity. The alien retreat. The unexpected happened. After a brutal back-and-forth battle, the tide of war began to shift. The alien fleet, once so confident in their superiority, was now in full retreat. Earth's forces, bolstered by the unity of a planet-wide defense effort, pushed forward relentlessly. The aliens, who had thought they would crush the humans with ease, now found themselves outmatched and overwhelmed by the sheer determination of the human spirit. "We're losing them," Zoran shouted, his voice filled with frustration as he watched the alien fleet on his command screen. "All units, fall back. We need to regroup." Krillarax, who had been silent for most of the battle, finally spoke. His voice was cold, his anger barely contained. "They're not just fighting, Zoran. They're enjoying it. They're feeding off the battle alarms. The humans are more powerful than we ever imagined." Zoran's face twisted in disbelief. The idea that humans could draw strength from their distress signals was almost absurd. Yet, as he watched the humans continue to attack with renewed vigor, it became clear that their unity was not a random coincidence. They had tapped into something deeper, something stronger. On the ground, the humans were everywhere. Fighters piloted by fearless young men and women soared through the air, their jet engines screeching as they dodged incoming fire and launched missile after missile at the retreating alien ships. The soldiers on the ground moved in sync, coordinated as if they shared a single mind. Every sound, every vibration, was a signal to them. The battle alarms were no longer just a call for defense. They were the heartbeat of humanity's resolve. "We've got them on the run." Captain Julia Chin cried out, her voice full of exhilaration, as her team took down another alien fighter. "Keep the pressure on. Don't let them escape." The air was thick with the sound of weapons fire, explosions, and the constant ringing of the battle alarms. Earth's forces had become a unified, relentless force, impossible to break. For the first time in history, humans were not simply defending their world. They were taking the fight to the invaders, and the aliens couldn't handle it. On the alien flagship, Krellrax slammed his fist onto the console. "Why aren't they backing down? Their resolve. It's unlike anything I've seen before." Zoran could barely contain his disbelief. "It's not just their numbers, it's the sound. The alarms, they're motivating them. We thought they were weak, but we've miscalculated everything." As the alien ships continued to retreat into the deep reaches of space, the humans took a collective breath. The battle had been won, but the cost had been steep. Cities lay in ruins, and many brave men and women had fallen. Yet, despite the devastation, humanity stood victorious. They had faced the impossible and triumphed. Back on Earth, there was a moment of silence as the last of the alien ships disappeared into the stars. The battlefield was littered with debris, and the remaining soldiers slowly began to lower their weapons, their adrenaline still pumping, their hearts pounding. They had done it. Against all odds, they had fought back the mightiest force in the galaxy. "We did it," General Emma Lawson said, her voice quiet but filled with pride. "We actually did it." But this victory was not just for the soldiers. It was for every person on Earth. From the children who had hidden in bunkers to the families watching from their homes, everyone had contributed to this moment of triumph. The alien invaders had come to conquer, but instead, they had been forced to retreat, their plans shattered by the strength of human resilience and unity. As the battle alarms continued to ring in the background, it was clear to the humans that this was just the beginning. They had fought off one invasion, but who knew what threats lay ahead? However, one thing was certain. Humanity would never back down. The sound of those alarms would echo in their minds, reminding them of their strength, their courage, and the fact that no one, not even the most advanced alien empire, could ever defeat them. The story of Earth's victory would be told for generations to come. It would inspire countless others to stand up against tyranny and oppression. It would remind everyone who heard it that humanity, when united, was a force unlike any other in the universe. As Earth's forces watched the retreating ships disappear, they knew the war wasn't over. But for the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope. They had not only survived, they had fought back, and they had won. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and they would never make that mistake again. The Galactic Empire's panic. In the depths of space, aboard the flagship of the Galactic Empire, chaos reigned. The once certain leaders of the Empire, alien overlords with centuries of power, now found themselves grappling with a terrifying realization. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The retreating alien fleet had ignited a wave of panic, one that spread faster than light itself. Inside the war room, the once proud commanders and tacticians of the Empire were in disarray. Panic was not an emotion these beings were used to, but the humanity they had so belittled was now forcing them to confront their worst fears. What are they doing? Zoran, the commander of the alien fleet, growled in disbelief. His alien fingers trembled over the controls of the ship's communications system. Why aren't they stopping? We've thrown everything at them. Krularax, his second in command, tried to make sense of the situation. His glowing eyes flickered, reflecting the flashing lights of emergency warnings throughout the flagship. I don't understand it. They're using our own tactics against us. Their coordination, their unity. They're not retreating. They're growing stronger. Zoran turned to his holographic display, showing a visual of Earth's forces, human fighters still swarming the skies, still charging forward with unstoppable force. They're not afraid, Zoran muttered under his breath. Not even a little bit. The aliens had underestimated the humans from the start. They had assumed that their technological superiority, their massive fleets, and their age-old dominance over the galaxy would make short work of this primitive species. But the humans had something far more powerful than technology, something they could not calculate, something they had no defense against, their will to survive. In every corner of the galaxy, the Empire's other fleets have begun to experience the same phenomena. Humans fighting back with a strength that made no logical sense. The Empire's greatest generals, who had crushed entire civilizations without hesitation, were now scrambling, trying to comprehend how a tiny army could stand up to them so fiercely. As Zoran paced in front of the command console, he recalled the strange behavior he had witnessed on the battlefield. The humans, when they heard the battle alarms, seemed to embrace them. The shrill, cacophonous sound should have been a signal of fear, of panic, but not for humans. For them, it was as if the alarm was a call to arms, a signal that no retreat was possible. What is it about those alarms? Zoran muttered, his mind racing. What makes them powerful? Why does the sound of impending doom make them stronger? Krularax stepped forward, his voice low and filled with unease. It's more than the alarms, Zoran. It's them, their reaction. They find strength in what we fear. When they hear that alarm, it awakens something deep within them. Something primal. It's their determination. The Empire commanders exchanged uneasy glances. They had fought countless species, reduced entire civilizations to ashes. But the humans had tapped into something far beyond tactics and technology. It was as if they had found a way to channel their fear, their desperation, and turn it into the most devastating weapon of all: resolve. How do we stop this? Zoran asked, his voice rising in frustration. How do we break them? The question lingered in the air as a tense silence filled the room. The alien leaders knew their empire's might was in question. They had attacked without mercy, expecting a swift victory. Now they faced the reality that Earth's defenders were more than just fighters. They were an entire species united in purpose. The humans had a fire in their hearts that even the greatest weaponry couldn't extinguish. Krularax clenched his fists, his glowing eyes narrowing. We need to rethink everything. They've broken us in ways we don't understand. They are not just a nuisance. They are a threat, the likes of which we've never faced before. Back on Earth, the human forces were still pushing forward, not knowing that their victory was shaking the foundation of the Galactic Empire itself. Every shot fired, every battle alarm blared, only pushed the aliens further into retreat, leaving them scrambling for answers. The Empire's tactics, once so refined, were useless against a species that had found strength in the very sound of impending destruction. On Earth, General Emma Lawson and her soldiers had no idea that their victory was having such a profound effect on the invaders. They only knew one thing: they could not stop now. They had come too far, fought too hard to back down. The battle alarms continued to ring, but for the humans, it was no longer a symbol of fear. It was a rallying cry. "We've got them on the ropes," Emma said, her voice determined. "We can't let them get away. Finish what we started." The truth was undeniable. The battle had shifted. The Galactic Empire's once mighty forces were now scrambling to maintain their position, desperately trying to hold on to the dominance they had taken for granted. But the humans had shattered that illusion, and nothing could make them retreat now, not even the most terrifying empire in the galaxy. The question remained: could the Empire recover from this blow? Could they find a way to counter the human resolve that had proven so deadly? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the humans had proven that no matter how far the odds were stacked against them, they would never back down. And the Galactic Empire would have to reckon with that fact forever. The final push. As the alien fleet limped back into the depths of space, the once proud Galactic Empire found itself in chaos. Their invincible grip over the galaxy had faltered. The shockwaves from humanity's unexpected response had reverberated far and wide. The forces they had sent to conquer Earth were now retreating, battered and broken, unable to withstand the fury of a species they had underestimated. Back on Earth, General Emma Lawson and her team watched the sky. It was an eerie sight. Where moments before, alien ships had darkened the skies, there was now a vast emptiness. The war had taken its toll, but the humans had held strong. They had fought not just with weapons, but with their very will to survive. Earth was not just a planet now. It was a symbol of defiance. But the humans knew they couldn't rest yet. The Empire wasn't defeated. They might have retreated for now, but it was only a matter of time before they regrouped, and the next attack could be even fiercer. "We need to finish this," General Lawson said, her voice steady, but filled with a fire that could not be ignored. "We can't let them regroup. This is our chance to end this once and for all." Her words were like a spark to the troops. Across Earth, men and women from every nation, every corner of the world, were ready. They had faced the unimaginable and come out victorious. But it wasn't over. This was the beginning of humanity's true response. Meanwhile, far above the Earth, in the Imperial command ship, the alien commanders were meeting in secret. They had never been so shaken. The sound of the human battle alarms, the unyielding will of their species, it had all broken them. They had retreated not because they feared defeat in battle, but because they feared the rise of something more terrifying than their weapons or ships. The humans had shown them that they were not merely conquerors, they were survivors. And that survival instinct had pushed them to a place the Empire had never imagined. "I told you they were no ordinary species," Krellrax, the second in command, said with a grim tone. "They have something we don't understand. Their resolve is unbreakable." Zoran, the commanding officer, clenched his fists in frustration. "We have always conquered, always dominated. How could this tiny, primitive species stand against us?" But deep down, Zoran knew the answer. The humans' greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their spirit. The Galactic Empire had always thought of themselves as the apex of life in the universe, but the humans had just shown them that strength came from within, not just from weapons or ships. "What are we going to do now?" Krellrax asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Zoran stood in front of the holographic map of Earth, his mind racing. He knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would lose their chance to defeat Earth forever. Their only option now was to regroup and plan their next move carefully. They could not afford to make the same mistake again. "We can't fight them head-on again. We need a new approach," Zoran muttered. "We'll strike when they least expect it. We'll divide their forces and take their strongest points out. But this time, we'll make sure they can't rally." Back on Earth, Emma Lawson and her team had no idea of the new plans being laid by the aliens. All they knew was that the war wasn't over, and the alien forces wouldn't stop until they had fully conquered Earth. But for now, Earth's defenders were united in their victory, knowing that they had pushed back a power far beyond anything they had ever faced. They had turned the tide, and now, with the eyes of the galaxy upon them, humanity would show what it meant to fight for their home. "I don't know what's coming next," General Lawson said, "but I do know one thing. We've shown them what humanity is capable of, and they won't forget it." With renewed determination, Earth's forces readied themselves for whatever the Empire would throw at them next. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake by underestimating humanity, and now they were going to pay the price. As the final preparations were made for the inevitable next clash, one thing was certain: the Earth had changed. The human race had been tested, and they had emerged victorious against a force they had no right to defeat. Now, they were ready for whatever came next. The battle for their world was far from over, but humanity had proven one undeniable truth: they would never back down.